Are you a seeker who's gone to a quote unquote spiritual destination? Then when you got there, it felt diluted or wasn't what it was cracked up to be? Or has someone suggested you go to a so called spiritual destination, but then when you looked into it, it did seem that appealing? Well, don't worry, you're not alone. Hang in there because I'm going to tell you what's going on and get into if there really are any actual, genuine spiritual destinations left. A spiritual destination came on my radar, just the general term and what they were. There were places that we could go to further our healing or spiritual path. Less than a year into my healing journey. So I was still new. It was actually a chiropractor. She was an energetic chiropractor, I think, who was spiritual. I was taking a crystal healing class at the time, and she was really into crystals. So we struck up a conversation, and we talked for a few times after that. At one point, she says, "You have to go to Mount Shasta." She said there's this mineral springs there that the healers go to charge up in the waters. So I asked my mother about Mount Shasta, and she was like, "Ooh, I've always wanted to go to Mount Shasta. Even as a kid, I wanted your father to take us there on a family trip, but he never did. That's one of the places that I wish I went to that I never got to see." So I was like, okay, I didn't really recognize synchronicities back then. I was still too new, but it seemed that it was legit. More people were confirming it. And not only did the chiropractor recommend a place to go, but my mother started doing research on her own because she got excited about the suggestion and sent me links about it. And it looked good. One recommendation she had was for this vision quest I could do with this shamanic lady. So I'm like, okay, this seems like a good trip, but how do I do it? Because up until that point, I was still considering becoming a Buddhist monk. Buddhism was my main foundation. And I liked the healing. I was making progress on myself, but I didn't believe that I would ever be able to do it. I thought, I don't have the skill, I don't have the spiritual gifts, and I don't have the business aptitude to run my own healing business. So that was off the table, and I was tired of the matrix, so I just wanted to leave society, and I thought going to a Buddhist monastery was the best way to do it. Flash forward almost exactly a year into my healing journey, I was taking this psychic development class, not because I wanted to be a psychic or I even thought I was psychic, but I wanted to develop my intuition so that I could incorporate that into the healing sessions I was doing, which at the time was mainly Reiki. In that class, I became good friends with two of the people, and one of the guys himself had either gone up or was going up to Mount Shasta for his own group healing experience. Well, this female psychic development student, for some reason, we were like practicing together, and I told her I was going to go on the trip, and she had really wanted to go too. So we ended up saying, we'll go together. It'll be a spiritual road trip. And that is what is really cool about the healing and the spiritual journey is sometimes things just happen quickly. In the real world, no, it would be a horrible idea to just plan a trip with someone you've only known for a little while. So I don't recommend doing that. But for some reason, especially because I was so new and still enamored with all the new things that were going on and I was learning about, I threw caution to the wind. And it worked out in that case. But yeah, would I recommend for just anyone else watching this video to just plan a trip with someone you've only known a little bit? Probably not. Be careful, be safe. But if you've been on this journey for at least a little while, you do know there is a magic behind everything that goes on and everything we do once we're in alignment. And that's what happened here. I also have just figured, oh, someone was spiritual, they were a good person, and she probably thought the same. And in that case, we weren't, it worked out, like I said. But still, in hindsight, it is kind of funny how just random adventures came about early on my healing journey. I think the main sign we were both going on was she was into Buddhism as well. And I had found this Buddhist monastery in Mount Shasta that was having a retreat. I think it was the following month after we took that month-long class. So I was talking to her about it, and she was really interested. And it was really nice because it was a Friday to a Sunday, and she wanted to go too. I felt, okay, this is a sign. Everything's pushing me in this direction. And this way I would have to go alone because I figured I didn't really know what to do then. How do you be spiritual? How do you do this? Well, and it felt so majestic and powerful the way everyone built it up. It was definitely nice having someone go with me. That was confirmation at the time that it was the right thing to do. So we booked the reservation for the retreat and it was a Zen Buddhist monastery. Then that afternoon to evening, we were going to go to the mineral springs and then we could stay there overnight, then leave the following morning. And then the full day that next day, we were going to do the vision quest and then drive back that night, pretty late, which it was, but it worked out. And we scheduled everything. She volunteered to drive, which was amazing. And that's what's also kind of cool about the early stages of your healing journey when you start meeting people. There's a bunch of them that'll just be really generous. They're just so accommodating, like, here, let me help you with that, or let's go. There's no, oh, gas is so expensive now, or what about the mileage? Or, especially when you get older, people can like really micromanage those details. But when magic's on your side and pushing you, and the universe is at your back, you just go along with it and everything just falls into place. So that part was cool. And we went. And the Zen Buddhist retreat was really good, but in a way I wasn't expecting. And I'm so glad I started with that because we could have planned the trip differently, but that was the best way to do it for sure. I should also disclose I went up to Mount Shasta with a question. That was my main purpose for going on this trip. Yes, the healing waters and all that sound cool, but I was at a crossroads because by the time we actually went on the trip, I was a full year into my healing journey, give or take. At this point, I had to decide, do I keep doing the healing or do I become a Buddhist monk? Do I leave society and go to a Buddhist monastery? Because Buddhism, up until that point, was my foundation. I wanted to leave the matrix. There was nothing else I really wanted to do except for healing. And that seemed like the way to do it. I liked the Buddhist philosophy. I had a really good friend from back home, probably my best friend from back home, who was having success and making progress as a Buddhist monk. So that made the most sense. But on the other hand, I was really enjoying healing. And not just enjoying it, but because it was interesting and I was like, oh, this is really cool. But I felt benefit too, physically and mentally. And I was wondering, do I keep doing this? I didn't think I could become a healer, though. That was the problem. I didn't think I had the skills. I didn't think I had the spiritual gifts. And I didn't think I had the business aptitude to run my own healing business, which is crazy looking back at it. But that is exactly the way I felt. These seemed like insurmountable goals, so I didn't even seriously have them. So, with that question in mind, I arrived I should say we arrived at the Buddhist monastery. But here's the other thing. I thought I was going to get the answer to this question at the Vision Quest at the end, because that's supposedly the one where you do the deep dive, really do a lot of self-reflection. The monastery was more of like a silent retreat kind of, with meditations and they had other cool experiences for sure. It was very simple, but it did the trick as well. And we would have this like dining hall for the meals and stuff, but it was small, felt kind of like a cafeteria. And they did have this giant bell in their meditation hall, which was so powerful. I think I'd even appreciate it more if I ever get to go back there now. But it was like I said, it was very simple, but it was perfect for what I was doing. So I started doing these meditations and related events that they had scheduled for this retreat. And early on, I realized, this isn't for me. I can appreciate these exercises we're doing, but I don't want to be doing this all the time. Something felt missing. This was, I think it was the first night I was there, towards the end of the first day. And I finished the next day, and the brief time we had Sunday morning, and I realized I already had my answer. I had gotten what I came for. Then, when we went to the mineral springs, that was great. That was probably the best time I had on that trip, because there were, I think, 3 different stations. Indoors, there were mineral baths, which actually were so strong they could be corrosive. I had minor burns on some parts of my skin, like I think my thighs and maybe arms in some places. I forget the second spot, but it was definitely on my upper legs. Nothing major, but it was enough to actually sting. And then there was a sauna with large rocks that they were putting on, whatever he heated it up. And the problem is you can't go to this place anymore or even look it up, because like within a year or two after that, they had sold the land and now they don't, it's not open to the public anymore. So I can't even go back to confirm the experience. And like I said, I was still new, so I was amazed and not really taking as many things in as I should be, because at the time I thought, oh yeah, I'll be doing this again. Well, this goes to show you, it's a powerful reminder never to take anything for granted. The sauna room was giant. It could fit easily 5 or 6 people, maybe more. It was, I just remember there was like a carve out. You could walk around those indents. It was really big, where a lot of saunas I've gone to usually max out at 2 people. But this was very big as far as I saw for a sauna. And even the rocks they put on to get the heat going were very large. It was just a nice setup overall. Then was the mineral springs. And that was outdoors, directly out back. There was the stream that came from down up high and went down these rocks into, for lack of a better term, these two wading pool areas. They weren't wading pools, but that's what they felt like. It was just the bottom of the stream, though. There were a few people who would just dip their legs in up to about their knees. Some people, like myself, would just submerge right under. It was a little difficult because you kind of had to get down and just go fall back like that because the water was relatively shallow. Not terribly so where it was like almost impossible, but shallow enough you had to get down first and then just kind of go. The water was also freezing cold. It was frigid, but it felt invigorating, kind of like a cold plunge, which I was also learning about at that time as well. Then you could do a combination of these three stations, the outdoor stream and then the two indoor stations, the mineral bath and the sauna. So you had one hot one, then the bath, which you could choose the temperature, and then the really cold stream. It was nice just going back and forth around these stations. And the person I was with, we kind of split up. Sometimes we crossed paths, but I was just on my own and I cycled these stations more frequently than she did. Then we stayed there that night. They had these kind of cabin-like hotel rooms, which were decent enough, but it was a good price. Which brings me to the final day, where we went on the vision quest. And to start, we got the instructions to meet the lady at this small mom and pop convenience store because she was going to get some food and I think some drinks, healthy drinks for the day. We met her there and we parked, and she would take us to mainly locations where there was a vortex. She supposedly was also a channel, so she'd deliver messages and also lead us on meditations. One of the sites was really cool because I had brought crystals, and when she pointed out the vortex, she let me put them directly on them to charge them up, which I think they did. Not only was it on the sun, which will charge them anyways, but there really was an energy because I remember walking slowly with the other two people. We just felt it. And vortex energy is powerful. There really is something to it. At that time, I was very open-minded and I was hoping it would charge me up, increase my spiritual capabilities, things to that extent, which it probably did. I didn't have one of those lightning bolt moments where the energy just shoots up or anything. But I think a lot of the stuff I was doing gradually did help me and assist with my awakening process. She leads these decent meditations. She was connected to Ascended Masters, and that's who she worked with. She also liked to channel different beings. So we did that, and I had gotten some insight, but the main one that I needed, I had already gotten. So I was just basically enjoying it at this point, which it was. And I did realize some more stuff, and she let us journal. And these meditations she guided us on would go through multiple levels. And also there were some hikes we went on that were really cool. Mount Shasta is a beautiful area. After that, we called it a day and we drove back in the evening. I think a 9.5 hour drive back to LA, but we did it and I offered to split up the driving. Surprisingly enough, the Vision Quest was probably the underwhelming part of the trip, which was what I was looking forward to the most. It wasn't bad, don't get me wrong. but it was as powerful and insightful as I thought it would be going into it. The best one was the mineral springs for sure. That was amazing. For the price, you just got so much value. I really wish it was still open because I would definitely recommend that. Then was the Buddhist monastery, which wasn't anything special in terms of events we did or location, but it did the trick. That's why sometimes the best insights and realizations happen when we just let go. That alone was a powerful experience. So I was really glad and lucky that I got in my answer, which, as you could probably guess by now, was to still heal. I didn't know exactly where it was going, but still continue the healing path. That is the answer that I received. After that, it was over a year, between a year and a half, before I would go to my next spiritual destination, which was Sedona. And I'll probably do another separate talk on that. But that was amazing and imperative for the early stages of my healing journey as well. Sedona had such a big impact on me that I went back 2 years later. However, when I went back, it did feel like the same. Even though 2 years isn't a crazy amount of time in between, it had become way more commercialized. And it probably already started happening when I first went there compared to how it was. But even in a relatively short amount of time, the difference was easy to see. While the vortex I went to didn't lose any of its power and the sights were still beautiful, at the same time, it felt somewhat less magical. There were more of the fake spiritual people there and more tourist attractions. I won't go as far to say that I did enjoy it, but it didn't really feel like a place to do the deep seeking. It had lost some of its luster. Around that time, other friends and colleagues were telling me, oh, I have to check out Taos, New Mexico, because that's the new Sedona. However, when I started making plans in the meantime, then Taos got commercialized and overcrowded, and just the spiritual tourism and spiritual capitalism overtook it. And now it attracts the types of spiritualists that I prefer to avoid. From what I heard, I still have not got out there. And I do want to, I will, but I think I missed the boat on seeing it in its glory. And the reason why I share this, because it's not just these 2 to 3 places that were once magical and they're starting to be turned into something that isn't as helpful for people looking to go within, that need questions answered and need the help of a spiritual center of the earth to get that guidance. It's not just these places. I've heard this about Bali, about some of the more New Age spirituality leading places in Thailand, even places in South America that the plant medicine people go to are turning this way. It's unfortunate because what really helped a lot of people in the past is now possibly not an option like it was anymore. If The old spiritual destinations have become corrupted and watered down and aren't able to offer what they used to. In fact, it sounds like most of them have become the opposite of what they were really for. Then what are we left with? What do we do? I've had a realization that we don't need a special spiritual place. They were great, and I really wish we preserved them better, but it's not the end. I truly believe the next real spiritual destination is nature. Good, old, plain nature. That, I think, is our next calling, to go back to our roots, back to agriculture, back to farms, back to gardens, reconnecting with this planet, leaving society or what they call society, what it's morphed into, and do what our ancestors did. I truly believe everything happens for a reason, and if we can't go to these specific places anymore, then we have to make the next spiritual destinations. And they won't be tourist areas. It might just be for us, our friends and family. But that's okay. And it makes sense that that's the next stage of where all the conscious people are truly headed. So if you're fretting that you missed out, you can no longer go to a mystical beach in Mexico to aid with your ascension process without it being ruined by annoying fake yogis that are there with all the latest trends in terms of fashion and accessories. It's not over yet. That chapter might be closed, but the next one has just begun. Instead of thinking, I can't go to these specific locations anymore that were special, it's our duty to make this whole planet special once again. So I put that on you as something to consider. Thanks for checking out this talk today. As always, take what resonates and throw away what doesn't.